from breakthrough strategies to game-changing innovations and cultural shifts. You'll discover the lessons that drive real impact, and we'll dive into the moments that changed everything. Welcome to The Missing Piece with April Reed.
Today on The Missing Piece, I'm excited to welcome Christine Wessel, Vice President and Deputy General Counsel at Crossover Health. Christine brings nearly 2 decades of in-house legal experience with a background in corporate governance, finance, transactions, and healthcare law. What I love about Christine's perspective is that she believes legal should not be the department of no, but the department of how, helping healthcare organizations grow, innovate, and solve problems while still protecting patients, providers, and the business. Today, we'll talk about her journey, leadership, healthcare innovation, AI, and what she sees as the missing piece in legal and healthcare today. Christine, welcome to the show. I'm really happy to have you.
Thanks, April. I'm glad to be here.
Really excited to kind of talk about this. You're my first attorney to be on the show when it comes to healthcare. And like I said in my intro, I'm really excited to just kind of learn about your background. And I do think that people think that the Department of No instead of the Department of How, but we'll get into that a little bit later. First, introduce yourself to our audience, people that don't know you. Introduce yourself and how you even got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I went a bit of a circuitous route to becoming a lawyer and then eventually to becoming a healthcare lawyer. I had always wanted to be a lawyer when I was growing up. My dad encouraged me to be a lawyer. I had teachers who encouraged me to be a lawyer. They told me that my brain kind of worked like a lawyer's brain. But then I also heard people telling me, don't go into the law. There are too many attorneys in California, in the world. We don't need more lawyers. Eventually, a friend of mine, her father was a judge, and I had dinner at their house one day, and having a conversation with him just completely changed me and changed my mind about pursuing the law. I was in my late 20s, and he said, we need more women in the law, and I think you should be a lawyer. And having his perspective on that and his encouragement really made me think about it again. And that's when I decided to move forward and go back to law school at the ripe old age of 29. So that, that was, I didn't actually think I would ever go to law school once I got into my mid 20s, but he just pushed me in that direction. And I'm glad he did, because it really turned out to be a great career path for me. I love being a lawyer. I really enjoyed law school, but I also love being a lawyer. I grew up in Southern California. I went to UCSB in Santa Barbara and UCLA Law School. And then I spent the first chapter of my career as a lawyer working at a big law firm in kind of the rigid world of mutual fund governance and SEC filings, financial regulation. And then eventually kind of transitioned to sort of a more general counsel role in outside firms. And then eventually I went to work in-house at a consumer products company. And that was a great experience. One of the finance team members went to work at Crossover Health while I was still at that company. And he eventually recruited me to come work at Crossover as the first in-house lawyer that Crossover hired. So, I never intended to go into healthcare, but here I am, and I'm loving it. I love practicing in the healthcare field, especially at Crossover, where we are kind of at an intersection between improving healthcare and providing great care to our patients, but advancing technology and using technology in the practice. And it's such an evolving area right now, and it's fascinating. And my days are so varied. I'm never bored. I do problems every day, and working with our clients and helping to solve problems collaboratively with them has been a great career experience for me. I just love it.
So I did not know that you went to law school at 29.
I did.
Which I think is so inspiring, because you think you're supposed to figure it out like in your, late teens to early 20s. And then you go on this law career, or you go on this, you're like, this is what I'm going to do. And I think that's really inspiring, especially to the younger listeners, the university students that maybe are studying healthcare, but then for some reason they get drawn to your story and then practicing law, and it doesn't matter when you go into it. So that's incredible. So you get your law degree, and then along your journey after, you're working in the finance industry and retail, you run into the crossover space. How long have you been at Crossover? And you were the first attorney to join them.
Yeah, I joined them late 2019. So right before COVID hit, I joined them as the first attorney in-house. We had outside counsel, obviously, and eventually one of our outside counsel joined us as our general counsel, and he's amazing. I really appreciate his mentorship and enjoy working with him. But as the first attorney at Crossover, my job was to come in and sort of clean house, right? Because the company hadn't had an in-house lawyer, relied entirely on outside counsel, but oftentimes companies will try to do things, especially in startup phase, try to do things and save money without necessarily having a lawyer help them. And so I had a lot of organization to do, a lot of systems to put in place, a lot of templates to create for us to use going forward to improve our contracting process. And so that was a big part of my job initially. And now that we've got a good foundation for our legal department, it's grown as well. We've hired another attorney to work for us. We have a really great legal team, and we are just on fire and doing such great things with the company. And I'm really proud of the fact that our legal department is seen as a partner to the business. We are a strategic advisor to the business. So they consult with us and don't think, oh, don't ask legal because the answer will be no, or don't ask legal because they'll slow us down. They generally tend to come to us and say, help us do what we want to do. Help us figure out how to do it in a compliant way. Help us figure out how to do it in the best way for the company that's going to, have the greatest impact. And so I'm really proud of that, because I think in a lot of in-house legal departments, the business doesn't necessarily want to involve legal. They almost exclude them because they feel like they're a department of no, and we are not the department of no. We are very much the department of how, as you mentioned. I like to use the analogy that our in-house legal team and an in-house lawyer is like the sword, both the sword and the shield of the company. So as an attorney, we serve the organization's shield because we're focused on defense, risk mitigation, protecting the company from liability, et cetera. But in a mission-driven organization like Crossover, we also need our lawyers to be a sword. So we're a tool that kind of clears the path for the company to innovate, for our leaders to really make new pathways in healthcare and develop new innovations and new technologies and new products for our clients and our patients to take advantage of. And so in clearing that path, it's really like our intent is to get to a place of yes, like this is how we can accomplish what the business wants to accomplish, but also doing it within the bounds of integrity and compliance. So we're here to sort of like clear the path, but also set up the guardrails, right? So I see that as our role. And when we balance both of those things, I think we become a strategic partner to the business as opposed to being a roadblock.
I love that. I love that because I do feel like, and you probably know this, but that attorneys have that stigma of, I'm not even going to try because I know they're going to just shut it down. You know what I mean? From an innovation, or who knows, even a scaling, like even in healthcare, they'd be like, no, we can't do that. It is easy to do that. Do you feel like that because you and your team, from a legal perspective, I love the sword and shield analogy. Do you think that Crossover is, I don't know, maybe growing faster than other organizations, or because of your innovation, because of you guys partnering, like you said, with the organization from a scaling perspective? I mean, have you seen a lot of growth, and do you attribute it to you and your team?
We have seen a lot of growth recently. I don't pretend to take the credit for the growth, but I like to think that I'm a part of it as a part of the team. At Crossover, we refer to everyone within the company as our ex-Ohana, which is sort of it harkens back to our sort of Hawaiian surf culture at Crossover, which is from our founders who are avid surfers. They see us all as ex-Ohana, Ohana being the term for family. And so we are Crossover family, Ohana at Crossover. So ex-Ohana is the term we use. And I think it's a team effort entirely. And I'm so proud to be a part of the team. Every time we have a win, our sales team, our account management team will send out an email to the organization thanking everyone. And I'm proud to be just one of the many people that facilitates the wins that we have in the business. But yes, we have grown significantly. And we have also seen a lot of wins where we've earned business from other companies that do the same sort of thing that we do. They provide healthcare on campus or near site or virtual for employer populations that are self-insured. And we've been really proud to be able to beat some of our competitors to take over the business from them. And I think a lot of that has to do with our reputation as creative problem solvers. And I think the legal department has a part in that, because we definitely are a resource to our sales and account management teams to say, hey, the client wants to try to do something that's really innovative. We've never done this before, or we've never heard of anybody doing that before, even in the industry. Let's figure out how to do it. And we partner with them. We as a legal team will work with our client's legal team to figure out, how do we do this in a compliant way? And we're in a pretty rigid landscape in healthcare and the benefit space. So there's, healthcare law, there's ERISA, there's HIPAA, there's so many different areas of the law that affect how we do what we do. And so it's a big quilt of different overlaying laws that affect what we do. Insurance law, even though we mostly serve clients who are self-insured, some of the things they want to do sort of implicate insurance regulations and third-party administrator regulations and licensing requirements. And we have to sort of figure out how can we do what we want to do in a compliant way that isn't going to create compliance issues both for crossover and also for the client. And so collaborating on those things, I think, has led to us having a reputation for being creative problem solvers, not just for our organization, but with our clients. And I think that's a differentiator. I think a lot of our clients see Crossover's legal department as we're not the department of no to our clients also, because our clients are asking us to do stuff that, do innovative things. And the legal department could just say, no, that's too risky for Crossover. Our job is to figure out, how can we make this happen so our clients will continue to work with us and stick with us and continue to innovate to improve healthcare. That's really what ultimately, at the end of the day, our mission is to improve healthcare for patients.
Right. I love it. So that brings me to kind of like the tech topic that's everybody's talking about, and how fast AI is being adopted, specifically in the healthcare industry. I laugh because I've been in, the healthcare tech space since 2004, so a long time. And it's always felt like we're the last ones to get caught up on technology, but yet with AI, healthcare is actually leading the charge in adoption. And it's rolling out fast, and it is making a difference. How do you handle that from the legal perspective in adopting AI and new technologies? Tell me how it's been on your side of the whole, for IT, that's easy to talk to, but how do you do it from a governance and legal perspective?
So this is such an important current question, right? We are grappling with this across every industry, but especially in healthcare, because there are aspects of AI that are really frightening. The fact that, you have these large language models that are learning from the data that we input into the AI model. So one of the most important things from our perspective in adopting any AI technology at Crossover is that it be HIPAA compliant, that it's not, the model is not learning from the data that we input into it. It's always done with the patient's privacy and safety is the ultimate most important aspect of using AI in healthcare. But there's also an intersection of using it in the law. And so I have to imagine, how are we using it specifically as a legal team, but also how's the organization using it for healthcare purposes? So we've implemented some guardrails for use of AI in the practice and in the company as a whole. We definitely only allow our employees to use tools that have been approved by our information security team, that have been vetted, and that we can be certain are HIPAA compliant. So we're never going to allow our patients' data to be used to train any model. We don't want there to be any potential for that information to get out into the public realm. But then as a lawyer, I also think about the fact that we know that AI hallucinates, it makes mistakes, it's not perfect. I treat AI in my practice as a lawyer as kind of a junior associate that can do a lot of the legwork for me, but that has to be checked up on. And so I use it, like I'll ask it to do research for me, but then I'll double check what it's telling me is the law. And I've caught it in mistakes and it's funny, when you tell it it's made a mistake, it'll say, "Oh, that's very astute of you to have seen that." It's like, it won't even admit that it's wrong. It just says, "Oh, you're so much smarter." So it's really funny to use AI in that way, but it does it does speed things up for me in a lot of ways, because I can ask
Yeah.
it to summarize a document for me before I read it, so that going into the document, I have a better grasp of what it helps me to anticipate, what am I looking for? What are some of the issues that the AI spotted that, okay, I can go to that, I can go and directly deal with those things quickly, but then also I need to read it to make sure that it's, that I'm catching the things that maybe the AI didn't catch. It doesn't have the context that the human in the loop does. So it's really important for there to be a human in the loop in AI utilization for healthcare and for lawyers. One of the things that I worry about, though, with AI is that as a young lawyer, I came up through a big law firm where I was trained by attorneys that were more experienced than me, helping me to understand the research that I was doing. And, as one of the things that I remember as a young lawyer, one of the attorneys that I worked with that mentored me told me, when you're a young lawyer, your clients will pay you for what you can do. You can work long hours, you can summarize lots of documents, you can review a lot of pages, you can, spend lots of time doing a lot of things that are grunt work. But then eventually you get to the point where they're going to pay you for what you know, because you will know more about the law. You will have, not an encyclopedic knowledge, but you're a better resource for them to ask a question. What does the law say about X? And then eventually they'll pay you for what you think. And that's when a lawyer becomes a strategic advisor and becomes really integral to an organization or to their client. They pay you for what you think because you can assimilate, you understand the context, you have the institutional knowledge, and you also have the knowledge of the law. And you also can reason through all of those things to come with a well-reasoned answer that takes into account the risks, the benefits, the goals of the company. And all of that together is something that you have to learn to be as a lawyer starting out doing that grunt work. So I worry as a more senior attorney about the junior attorneys that are coming out of law school and hoping to get that training and may not be flexing that muscle to learn the way that we had to learn to be able to supervise the AI, right? The young lawyers are going to come out and instantly have that AI tool to do that grunt work for them. So are they going to be learning those skills of judgment, of problem solving, the way that we did as young attorneys coming up without AI? So I worry about that a little bit. And I think that may also be somewhat true in the medical profession, because if physicians are using AI as a diagnostic tool and relying on that to evaluate symptoms and then help them come up with the diagnosis, how are the junior doctors, the residents, the doctors that are just coming out of medical school, how are they going to learn those muscles, gain those muscles in order to do that same kind of thing? I don't know what the answer is. I hope that just as I have the perspective that AI is imperfect and that we have to oversee it, will mean that we will, as senior attorneys, be supervising junior attorneys and training them to think through these things a little bit before they just turn to AI. I don't know if that's going to be a realistic thing, but I hope it will. I want our junior. We still have to be aware that you have to have an attorney involved in the interaction. AI is not privileged. If your clients are asking AI for advice, it's not privileged, it's not confidential, it's discoverable. And so I worry that people are going to be taking shortcuts in using AI instead of consulting with an attorney and thinking, one, that they got the right answer, which they won't always get the right answer. And in fact, I've seen a couple of instances where a client asked AI a question and the answer was wrong. And I had to say, well, that's not right. And this is why. And if the client had acted on what the AI suggested was the answer, it could have been disastrous. So we need to make sure people are aware that, you can't rely on AI, but training our junior attorneys and our junior doctors to come up without relying entirely on AI so that we can continue to be the auditor of what the AI is producing is really important. I think that's going to be something that we're going to have to be weary of.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even like you said, just the fact that, it does hallucinate and it's not right. And it's not the end all be all. And learning around it, something that we've been really becoming passionate about is AI literacy for the entire organization and training every single individual at a healthcare organization on the policies around AI and its biases and its hallucinations and and then learning about it in general. So Yeah, I can't imagine your world, where ambient scribes and documentation and things like you said, you have to be protecting and making sure that the compliance metrics and the protections and all the things are in place as it gets bigger and then even more new technology gets plugged in. It's amazing and it's innovative and it is extremely helpful for patient care, which is obviously everyone's goal is to improve the care for the patient, but just the heavy lift that comes with it and the responsibility around it.
Yeah.
To leadership. So I know your owners are, like you said, they're innovative, they're cutting edge. So your leaders, you've shared, they're innovative, they really care about what you're doing. They are a team family, like you said, the Exo Ohana, I think was what you called it, which is just amazing. They've created that culture for you and your team and the business as a whole. For leadership or C suite at other healthcare organizations, what would be your advice, to the leadership to help create that culture and team with the attorneys, to really kind of create more of that innovation and fire and fuel and excitement of a culture teaming together? Like, what would be your advice there? Because I love every time I talk to you, you're like, man, I just love where I work. Like, you're like, I'm not going anywhere. I love, but it does come from a culture perspective. What's your advice to other organizations or, listeners or C-suite on how to be inclusive and create that from the business side and the legal side?
Wow. And I mean, I think one of the most important things that I think any team member, not just legal, but any leader needs to try to do is to see ourselves as enablers of the business and to understand the why behind every single goal, whether it's clinical or a business goal. Why do we want to do what we want to do? And I think that's one thing that our leadership has been really, really strong on is tying every single person's role to our mission of improving healthcare. And I love the fact that we are so focused on that every single person cheers and throws up a hallelujah or is just so proud when we hear a story of a patient that's had a major transformation in their health journey because of our team's focusing on. I'm not a doctor, but to me, the fact that I'm able to influence an organization and be a part of a team that has saved lives and has changed people's lives for the better, improving health outcomes for not just a population, but individuals, to learn about the individual impact that we have. I think focusing on that as an organization is so important, and I think that is what has made Crossover successful, and it's what has made our team successful on the Exohana level, but also on an individual level. Sometimes I just get chills thinking about the things that we've been able to accomplish for our patients. And I don't even talk to patients. I don't know these people individually, but it feels so good to know that I've made a difference in people's lives. And so I think that's what I would encourage people to focus on is the why, and then to try to innovate and focus on what's not being said and how do we um, get to understand, like, I think it's really important to like focus on those things that are driving the organization to want to do what they want to do.
It's what you're saying is those drivers, like what drives the organization to get it to where they're trying to go.
Yeah. And I think one thing I will say about our CEO, Scott Shreve, he's almost evangelical about healthcare. It's almost like you can't help but when you meet him, but like jumping on the table and saying, yes, let's do it. You want to like, if he says, this is what we're going to do, every single person, whether it's someone within the organization and clients, will just say, let's go, let's do it. They want to follow him into battle to achieve that goal. And so I would say, having that sort of mindset of let's get it done and inspiring people. In fact, that's one of our values as a company, is to inspire people. I think the core values of the company are so amazing. One of them is inspire people. One is be curious. And be curious, I feel like, is something that has to influence us from the legal team. It's something that drives so much of what we do in terms of, and it's not just like being curious and trying to learn about innovation, but it's also being curious about why is something a problem and how can we overcome it? Being curious about why there's litigation in a certain area. And it brings it back to AI. Like, why is there litigation right now about using AI scribes in the healthcare space? And how can we make sure that we're protecting the company from that issue?
Right.
And do we need to adopt a policy? So, it's staying informed and being curious about what's going on in the healthcare space,
Right.
and then innovating from that place of curiosity. So, the values that the company has brought to our Exohana they help to drive everything we do. And I think that's an important facet. So I would encourage people to really think about, what are the company's values? What are you pursuing? And then roll that out to your population in a way that inspires.
I love it. I love it. And I love that you knew your core values. I think that's so important because then that does also lead the charge. So really inspiring in and of itself. Well, as we wrap up, I call the show The Missing Piece because I always feel like there's either a missing piece that changed everything for you, like a moment in your life that, was a defining moment, a missing piece that you were like, I want to be a part of this, and or the missing piece that you see, whether it be in legal or in healthcare, something that you would love to be a part of and solve. So it's kind of in your own interpretation, but was there something that kind of pops out to you when you think of the missing piece?
I think we touched on it already. It's really about not being the department of no. And I think I've found in working with my team at Crossover that a lot of people have come to Crossover from other organizations where they worked with a legal team that they didn't want to work with because they felt like they were a roadblock. And so I think really the missing piece is being a creative problem solver, recognizing that the law is a creative discipline. The medicine is also a creative discipline, right? I mean, you're having to solve problems on the fly and figure out what's going wrong here. How can I make this turn around? How can I make things right? So seeing that the law is a creative discipline, I think the missing piece. And I think, once you realize that, it's going to help you become a trusted advisor to the organization. Again, it's a daily endeavor. Being a creative problem solver is a daily endeavor, especially in an organization that's on the cusp of such innovation, that's pushing forward and doing things different and being a disruptor and working with the team that likes to move fast and break things. You have to be creative and be fast.
Yeah.
And I think, that's one of the things that I pride myself on, is that as a legal department and in setting up our legal department, I wanted us to be nimble and to be able to be great creative problem solvers for the organization and for our leaders to really make Crossover's goals come true and to be able to push the business to become what it is destined to become. And our fearless leader calls it inevitable. It's his idea that something might seem impossible at first, but then eventually through iteration it becomes inevitable. And that's so inspiring to just say, like, we cannot let anything stop us from doing what we set out to do. And adopting that philosophy as an attorney in a legal department that also has to be the shield of the company allowed me to pick up that sword and also be the creative problem solver and clear the path for the business to achieve what it set out to achieve.
Wow. I think that's a perfect way to end. I mean, I know that spoke to me as a business owner. Do we believe in the inevitable? If we're doing our part and we believe in the mission, we know our why and what is possible, then it is inevitable. I love that. What a great way to wrap up. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to you, learning from you. Who knew that an attorney would be so inspiring? You know what I mean? Like, it's true. It's exciting. What you guys are doing is unbelievable. And every patient's, lucky to be a part of Crossover Health and what you guys are doing there. So thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your story and the mission behind Crossover in general. So thank you, Christine.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, April. Thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Of course.
Every leader has a story, and every story reveals another piece of the bigger picture. What if the missing piece wasn't something you had to find, but something you were meant to become? Subscribe, share, and keep leading with intention. I'm April Reed, and I'll see you in the next conversation on The Missing Piece.